Good day, everyone, and also to Sir Joe Manina. We are the reporters of Group 6, and my name is Miss Patricia. And today we will delve into the enigmatic intellectual landscape crafted by one of the brilliant French philosophers, Mr. Jean Baudrillard. Here, we will embark on a journey through the corridors of his seminal work, The Simulacra and Simulation, a labyrinth of ideas that challenges our every understanding of reality and representation. But before we delve deeper in the works and life of our philosopher, let me give first a brief background of our philosopher. Jean Baudrillard was a French sociologist, a philosopher, and a cultural theorist whose work is most closely tied with post-structuralism and early postmodernism, through which the idea of hyperreality has been shaped. Baudrillard was born in 1929 in Reims, in France, and he became the first in his family to attend the university when he moved to the Sorbonne University in Paris. He also began reviewing literature and translating the works of the famous writers such as Bertolt Brecht in 1898 to 1956, Karl Marx in 1818 to 1983, Peter Weiss in 1916 to 1982, while he was still working as a teacher in France. Later, Baudrillard transferred to sociology, and in 1986, he transferred to the Institut de Recherche d'Information in Socio-Economic, or IRIS, at the University of Paris, Dauphine. Baudrillard was also married twice and had 2 children from his first marriage, and was diagnosed with cancer in 2005, and he died at the age of 77 in 2007. So here in the next slide, we have one of his famous quotes in his work, Simulacra and Simulation. The quote, "The simulacrum is never that which conceals the truth, it is the truth which conceals that there is not." So to further explain the quote, I will give an example and I will explain it. So here, the simulacra is a representation or a copy that has no original, and according to Baudrillard, we live in a world saturated with simulacra, which are the images, signs, and symbols that often stand in for or replace reality. So to give an example, I will be using social media. So consider someone's Instagram profile filled with carefully chosen photos, filtered images, and curated captions. Each post is an example of simulacrum, a representation of the moment or an aspect in their life. So in the quote, "Concealing the truth," in the given example, Baudrillard's idea here is not that the Instagram post is hiding the true version of the person's life. Instead, the truth about their experiences is elusive and multifaceted. The simulacra in this case do not mask a singular truth but rather contribute to a constructive narrative. So in the last quote, "The truth which conceals that there is none," the projection of the idealized life of social media can contribute to a situation where the very concept of an authentic, unmediated truth becomes obscured. The person's online persona is not a deliberate deception, but rather a product of the hyperreal environment, where the line between reality and representation blurs. So Baudrillard's example here in his work, the simulacra on social media don't hide fixed, objective truths about a person's life. Instead, they contribute to a complex, multifaceted narrative that challenges the notion of a singular underlying truth. The Instagram profile becomes a microcosm of Baudrillard's idea that is truth itself that is connected in a world saturated with simulation. So in the next slide we have here postmodernism is the idea that moved beyond modernism, either modernism in culture and art or modernism in a sense of belief in progress. So to further explain postmodernism, we have here it is a philosophical, cultural, and artistic movement that emerged in the mid to late 20th century as a reaction against principles and assumptions of modernism. It is characterized by a rejection of grand narratives, a skepticism towards meta narratives, a celebration of diversity and fragmentation, and an emphasis to the fluidity and subjectivity of truth. Postmodernism has often challenged traditional boundaries between high and low culture, embracing intertextuality, and incorporates elements of parody, irony, and playfulness. So, here in the next slide, we have the best known works of Jean Baudrillard, which is The Simulacra and Simulation, and the Gulf War did not take place. So this would be further explained by the next reporter. So in the next slide, we have here his significance as a postmodernism philosopher. So Baudrillard's work is significant in postmodernism as he examines the impact of media, the consumer culture, and the simulation on society. His concept of simulation, hyperreality, and simulacra challenges the traditional notions of reality and highlights the constructed nature of our experiences. His ideas contribute to the critique of grand narratives and explain the fragmented, hyperreal nature of contemporary society. So, to further explain, Jean Baudrillard contributed significantly to postmodernism thought. His work, particularly in Simulacra and Simulation, explores the concept of hyperreality, the idea that simulations and representations have become more real than the reality they purportedly represent. Baudrillard's ideas have profound implications for understanding the modern world. So, we have here in the simulation and hyperreality to give a brief overview of his work. Baudrillard argues that in the modern world, simulation or simulacra have become detached from any original reality. The hyperreal state in which a simulation are more real than reality itself blurs the line between what is authentic and what is constructed. So in the media and images, as for what I have example earlier, the profile picture of a person in Instagram. So here, Baudrillard contends that the prevalence of media and images in a contemporary society contribute to the creation of hyperreal environment. Mass media, advertising, and digital technologies shape perceptions and experiences, leading to the world where reality is often mediated by representation. So, in the loss of referentiality, in the hyperreal society, there is a loss of referentiality, meaning the signs and symbols no longer point to an external reality. Instead, they circulate within a system of endless representation, creating a self-referential loop divorced from any original context. So, In the consumer culture, Baudrillard explores the impact of consumer culture on the construction of reality. In the world saturated with commodities and science, the act of consumption becomes integral to identity formation, and boundaries between personal desires and external influences blur. So, in the end of the grand narratives, Baudrillard aligns with postmodernism in rejecting the idea of grand narrative that explains the trajectory of history or society. Instead, he suggests that the contemporary culture is characterized by plurality of narratives and the absence of a single overreacting truth. So, in the modern world, Baudrillard's ideas find resonance in various phenomena, such as the dominance of digital media, the influence of advertising and branding, the prevalence of virtual realities, and the continuous circulation of images in social media. The concept of hyperreality is particularly relevant in understanding how representations and simulation shape our understanding of reality, contributing to a complex and multifaceted cultural landscape. So, that would be the end of my report, and I will give the floor to the next reporter, Miss Loverly Dongo. So that will be it. Thank you, everyone.
So let's continue the discussion about the simulacra and simulation. So according to Baudrillard, simulacra is highlighting the idea that in modern society, our perception of reality has been replaced or replicated by symbols, signs, and representations. So, Baudrillard asserts that the distinction between reality and representation has become increasingly blurred to the point where what we deem as true as if often a hyperreal, a mere duplication without an original source. So Baudrillard discusses the concept of simulacra, which refers to copies that depicts things that either had no reality to begin with or no longer have an original. So, an example he famously used to illustrate this was the Disneyland. So, beyond being just a theme park, Baudrillard argued that Disneyland creates a hyperreal environment detached from the constraints of reality. According to him, Disneyland is not an accurate depiction of reality, but rather a simulation or imitation version of the world. So, in this way, it blurs the lines between what is truly authentic and what is artificially created. So, Baudrillard used Disneyland as a prime example of how simulations can hold more weight and significance than the actual reality they are based on. Simulation is a copy or imitation that substitutes for reality. Explore the proliferation of signs, symbols, and simulations that our experiences blurring the line between reality and representation. So simulation is the process of imitating the operation of a real world process or system over time. So while related, they are not exactly the same. Simulation can involve creating models or representations of reality, while simulacra are copies that may not necessarily have basis in reality. So the next slide, please. According to Baudrillard, there is 4 stages of stimulation. Stage 1 is the image is a reflection of reality. Stage 2, the copy masks reality. Stage 3, the copy is removed from reality. Stage 4, which is the final stimulation or the hyper reality, the pure simulacrum. Images no longer relate to no reality. So in the first stage, where he tackles the idea of a faithful depiction of reality through signs and symbols. So this phase is defined by a direct connection between these signs and the reality they symbolize, with no interference or deceit. It portrays a simplistic link between signs and their objects, free from any intricate subject or veiled implications. So, the example of Baudrillard's first stage of simulation could be seen in the origins of photography or the duplication of images in art. So, during this stage, the image serves as an exact mirror of reality, where there exists a distinct connection between the signifier or the image and the signified or the object or reality it portrays. So this phase is characterized by a faithful imitation of the material world. So let's proceed to the stage 2. Stage the copy of the copy masks reality. Now, according to Jean Baudrillard's intriguing concept of stimulation, the second stage involves a deviation from reality, manifesting through the invention of an illusion that is intricately linked to the tangible world. So, this pivotal phase is where representations and signs start to warp and veil the authentic reality, causing a confusion between what is genuine and what is fabricated. It is a stage where reality is mimicked, oftentimes resulting in the erosion of the original authenticity and significance. So the example he uses this in this stage is the advertising and consumerism. It's not uncommon to witness a phenomenon where the allure of an image or representation surpasses the value of the actual product. So this is most evident in the simulated reality crafted by ads, which paint an idealized picture of a product or lifestyle. So as a result, we are consumed by a hyperreal environment where the stimulated version reigns supreme, overshadowing the bare reality of the product. Such detachment from the real is a defining feature of Baudrillard's second stage of simulation. So the stage 3 is the copy is removed from reality. According to Jean Baudrillard's concept of simulation, stage 3 is a critical level of hyperreality. So this phase blurs the boundaries between reality and simulation, ultimately causing them to lose their distinctiveness. Essentially, simulations or imitations become more significant and powerful than reality itself. So as a result, simulacra copies influence and shape people's perceptions, potentially causing them to place greater value and trust in simulations rather than what is truly real. So according to him, third, the third stage of simulation occurs when the simulation becomes entirely disconnected from reality or any original source. A prime illustration of this can be seen in modern media and technology, particularly in the realm of virtual reality. In virtual reality, users are completely enveloped in simulated environments that have no direct correlation to the physical world. The sensations, interactions, and experiences within these virtual worlds are detached from reality, embodying Baudrillard's third stage of simulation, where the simulation becomes the prevailing reality for those involved. According to Jean Baudrillard's conceptualization of simulation, stage 4 delves into the idea of hyperreality. This phase proposes that simulations or depictions take on high importance or authenticity, surpassing the mere physical reality they aim to represent. Hyperreality blurs the lines between what is real and what is simulated or imitated, leaving us struggling to differentiate between the two in the state simulations media or visual depictions hold a significant sway over our perception and encounters, eclipsing the influence of the tangible world around us. Jean Baudrillard's theory of the fourth stage of simulation, known as the hyperreal, is exemplified in various aspects of modern society. So, one striking illustration of this concept can be seen in the way people experience reality in simulated environments such as theme parks. Take Disneyland, for instance. It's not just a collection of rides, it constructs a completely artificial and heightened reality that somehow feels more real than the actual reality. So the lines between the simulated and the real become blurred as visitors willingly suspend their disbelief and fully immerse themselves in this fabricated fantasy world. So here, even emotions and experiences take on a hyperreal quality, detached from their original context and lacking authenticity. So this level of simulation surpasses mere representation. It becomes its own reality, supplanting the genuine with an artificial construct. So let's proceed to the next reporter.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Mata Eraros, and for today, I will discuss about the Gulf War did not take place. So, next slide, please. One of Baudrillard's most famous, some might say outrageous, observation was that the Gulf War never happened, referring to the first Gulf War in 1990s. So the statement Gulf War did not take place is a philosophical assertion made by French philosopher Jean Baudrillard. He argued that the media's representation of the war created a hyperreality that distorted the actual events. It is a perspective in the nature of reality and media influence. It did not take place exactly, but that did not exist for us at all, except through media, which packaged to us falsely depicting as a war. Jean Baudrillard does not mean to say that Gulf War did not take place. He says that television and media created so much hype of this event, Gulf War, that there is really big difference what's really happening in reality, what's happening in the Gulf War, and what media has shown to us. Media has created a hyper real world where the reality is become blurred.
In conclusion, Baudrillard claims that the Gulf War was more a media event than an actual conflict. Thus, he supports his claim with observation about the build-up to the war, the conduct of the war itself, and the aftermath of the war. While some may disagree with Baudrillard's assessment, it is impossible to deny that media plays a significant role in our perception of international conflicts.
According to Baudrillard, our experiences are profoundly mediated by media, technology, and consumer culture, resulting in a hyper-real environment dominated by simulations and science. We have replaced the actual means with some sort of fictional representation. So what media shows us that becomes reality. What media wants to show that becomes reality for us, and media is shaping to reality. So example for this is Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels are all just fake. We all know that it's not true, but we accepted it as a reality. So everything is blurred and we are going away from the reality, and that is what simulation. And simulation is the process of blurring of reality and fiction, creating a hyper-real world while when looks real than reality. So
The concept of hyperreality. Think way Baudrillard described the successive phase of the image. It is the reflection of profound reality. It makes and denatures a profound reality. It has no relation to any reality or whatsoever. It is own pure simulacrum. We can use his example of a Disneyland to contextualize this. At the theme park that exists without the need to refer to anything but itself. The theme park is not attempting to portray any semblance of reality and instead exists as itself, purely an image, with no reality to reflect. This theme park exists in a circle of reference to itself within itself. When life contains only by self-referential simulacrum, images, concepts, or objects that are reframed only by their own experience, then this life exists in hyperreality. Hyperreality is like those memes of soul living in a body. There is the real, the material world, and the hyperreal. The conceptual world that sits above the real but does not actually make contact with the real, like the soul. The hyperreal is no longer tethered to a reality. It hovers over the reality it once existence in or refined to, but is not bound by the rules of reality.
So thank you everyone for paying attention. So we've tackled the lessons that are quite useful in our topic about the postmodernism. So we hope that the presentation we delivered was understandable to you. So our topic presentation is just an overview about the subject of postmodernism. So thank you and have a great day ahead.